Blessings. Yo, I just had this thought, right? And man, this goes along with history and how they came on stage and they had to confuse the crowd as to, bless you, the role that they played. They played both roles, the male and the female, the wigs, the tights, and all of that shit to fool the audience into confusing them really as to what the role, who was actually playing the role. It could have been a man. Well, shit, it was men, you know and that's how, man, these shits make sense, and that's how the minds were easily manipulated or fooled, because they didn't know what they were actually seeing, but they were confusing the duality of the being, where it's like the separation of the minds, the left and right hemisphere, where they taught, they learned, they groomed, they conditioned the left side where nothing seemed right, but what seemed right always seemed confusing or seemed so off or so not right to do, because groomed into the left, conditioned into moving left, is going to keep you going in the same circle, right? But when you're going, shit, when you're going right, it's the same way, but you're going in the right direction. It's all, man, it's like they use the confusion of the sexes in order to keep the sexes confused. But oh, this is going to separate all of, like, all the definitions of what the sexes are. But at the same time, it's still one being, because the one being was asexual, where it could impregnate and produce themselves. And that is the true form of self love, right? But long gone, because science mixed in, more humans were created to what we are now in this form of human. 13 humans before this human form. They would confuse the sexes in order to sex and use the rituals in order to gain, break down the creativity and the duality of the being so that they can pose as the role that you would need in your life, therefore to govern a nation, govern a people. Therefore diplomacy was started, or the rules, regulations of how to be and who to be was taken away from the naturalness of who we are, as far as taking the roles and who was this and that and everything else to the main household. But they built up the mixing of the pyramids, depending on what books you read. But they took the pyramid from the diamond at the top and put it at the bottom, because of the bottom dwelling shits that they did and still continue to do when it comes to the debauchery and the gravity pull of the lust, power, and greed. It's like they would have to break everybody traumatically when it comes to the heart of the person, by way of damaging their root chakra. That is the creativity, or the beginning and producing of. But at the same time, if they stop production, it's like the Hancock movie, yo. It's like the separation of the beings to create more spiritual beings because of the gifts within both. And it's the light and dark of the sexes, right? Or now I'm mixing two different stories, but it's the light and dark combination that they never wanted to actually produce, co-produce, or reproduce. That's why they mix the confusion into the soup of the natural origin of things. It's like they need for the energy to stay in the lust, power, and greed in a way where it's always anger. There's no love in it. There's no emotion in it. Therefore, wow, the theory of one night stands have no emotion to it, but leave an emotional bond or a tie where you're still spiritually connected in a way, but at the same time, if done raw, it's a deeper meaning to it. To confuse the C's as to what SEX really is to confuse the sexes as to what their role is. Therefore, the grooming and the conditioning was to groom everybody and condition everybody into the energy of the lowest of vibrations, where the lust, power, and the greed can still thrive because of the continuation of those that choose not to break the generational curses within their bloodline. Trauma, emotional manipulation, mental manipulation can always wreak havoc to the nervous system. Therefore, that's the health problems, the mental problems, the breaking up of homes, and just being overall confused because of the confusion as to the beginning. This is strange. But the power is supposed to stay in debauchery. Oh, wow. This is the whole thing of the story of Lot's wife. Oh, wow. I'm going to think about it again. I'm going to put a video. I'll be back. Bye.